Thank you very much, Christy, and welcome to our webinar, Teaching with GameMaker Studio 2 in the New Normal. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. We're going to take a whistle-stop tour of GameMaker and the free resources that are available to teach GameMaker in whatever situation you may be in. So here's today's agenda. We'll start with a brief overview of GameMaker and the results from a survey of 150 educators. I will show you what all the types of content are available, both official, such as our free educator materials, and also community content. Because we have a very large community, there's a lot of high quality free content available along with official content that we provide to help educators to teach GameMaker in the classroom. We're going to review the resources listed by grouping them into educational approaches. So an educator-led environment, self-teaching without educator intervention using video tutorials and resources, as well as taking a more advanced approach which is a project-based approach. So we'll look at that as well. We'll look at the new functionality that we've recently released, and also our approach to licensing and privacy, including the licensing support that we're providing to schools which are currently home learning, and we'll finish up with a short Q&A. Before we get to the educator resources, I'd like to provide a brief overview of GameMaker Studio 2. So it was first developed in 1999 for use in education. We celebrated our 20th anniversary of GameMaker last November, so we're coming up to being 21 shortly. It's an easy to use 2D game making tool, and being 2D is important for learning because it removes much of the complexity associated with 3D and allows for faster progress. Drag and drop, or D&D, system for no-code development. So this means that students firstly understand the fundamental building blocks of coding and can then progress to actual coding when they're ready, letting them progress seamlessly without hitting a wall. We have our own custom language, GML, or GameMaker language. This is a JavaScript-like language and is based on C, and it's designed to be used for game design. So it's particularly simple to pick up in these circumstances. We include an image editor, a sprite editor, object editor, a room editor, and it now includes a sequences animation tool. There'll be more on that later. And we have free teacher resources, and these teach the fundamentals of coding and help students to build their own games step by step. There's a large active community with a forum, social media, and beginner tips from the pros. We have big studio credibility, so students can see hundreds of real commercial games with many multi-million sellers made with GameMaker. And the link here takes you to a showcase with award-winning games. The current iPad Game of the Year was Hyperlight Drifter, made with GameMaker. And we have over 1,000 new users subscribe to GameMaker every single day, with 90% of them being beginners. So while GameMaker is a professional tool, which has all of the credentials of being a professional tool, it is at the same time being a foundation tool. We sent out a questionnaire to our teachers, and as I mentioned, received 150 responses. I always thought that game design would be proved to be a great way to teach coding, but I was surprised that this came through as just one of the most important factors. You can see the chart here, which shows the semantic scaling response to the question, how effective are game design lessons at teaching the following? And looking at the top performing elements based on their ratings of performing somewhat effective or better, we have learning engagement at number 1 at 94.6%, individual confidence at 94%, planning at 91.4%, improving the teacher-student bond at 90.6%, learning to program languages at 89.3%, and improving class behavior at 86.7%. I'm often asked what age GameMaker is taught at, and our educational materials are aimed at ages 12 to 14. And we would ordinarily recommend a project-based approach be used for older students. So as you can see from this chart, the mean number of age ranges taught is 2.5 per teacher. So each teacher is generally teaching over 2.5 years, 2 to 3 years, meaning, each teacher is covering multiple year groups, as you would see. And we see a big pickup here at ages 14 to 15, all the way through. We're also heavily involved at colleges and universities, but more as an art tool. Here's our teachers approach the teaching of game design from the survey educators who use GameMaker. As you can see, the teaching of GameMaker is very hands-on, so it suits a kinesthetic approach to teaching. This is probably why we hear that students who struggle to engage in other areas of the curriculum are much more motivated to engage with GameMaker game design lessons. I was recently talking to one of our teachers who provides alternative provision to children who have behavioural difficulties and who can't be accommodated in mainstream education. He was saying that the Space Bubbles video tutorials we're going to look at shortly are at just the right level for his students. There are 3 approaches to teaching that I'm going to cover in this presentation. First up, it's going to be making a game step by step with the teacher leading, where the educator provides guidance on the teaching of coding to fulfill a school curriculum, and this is reinforced with step-by-step tutorials. It comes with an assessment structure and homeworks, and this is the approach taken by our educator resources, and will require the educator to run online tutorials to go through the slides. Next is making a game step-by-step using video. This is an approach that solely relies on video tutorials where users build and extend games from known knowledge using drag and drop, and then progress through into making these games using GML coding. This is more appropriate in home learning situations or out of school camps or clubs where there's no formal framework needed for learning code. The students are learning the skills in a more hands-on way, so educators may need to provide some structure to what they've learned afterwards using the educator classroom materials. But this requires less educator input, obviously. And finally, we have the approach of setting a project for students to interpret. And this is actually the most popular approach and used in more advanced curricula where students are required to show creativity and practical implementation of programming. For this approach, I'll show you the resources that can provide guidance and inspiration. This is how teachers evaluate progress being made by students. Our free tutorials include fully documented teacher and peer evaluation criteria. Assessing progress can be a difficult part of home learning. GameMaker enables easy sharing of games, so educators can quickly and easily check on the progress of the student. When running the survey, we got some great feedback from educators on how using game design has aided the education progress at their school. So I'm just going to go through some quotes that we got back. The kids are happier in class. There aren't behavior problems like in other classes. Games require creatives and tech teams to work together with a common goal to solve. While they build games, they also build friendships. Learn to overcome hardships and create something meaningful. My students very much enjoy the game design units that I teach. Personally, I think that game design is effective at improving problem solving, attention to detail, and teamwork. The students have learned to solve complex or abstract problems by themselves. The content provides a sufficient challenge and helps develop persistence and attention to detail. And it has certainly enabled some students who are otherwise disengaged from the curriculum to re-engage. And at the bottom of this slide, there's a link here which will take you through to an article that goes into more detail on these quotes and the research that was done. So what about the students? What do they get out of it? And what do they enjoy most? So this is what our teachers had to say. Definitely the end where they finally tried their own game, even if it was the most simple game in the world. Learning to overcome challenges and have a working program. The students love to show their parents what they've made by themselves. They're very proud if they get ideas done and improve their skills. The feeling of accomplishment when completing a game and watching others play the games that they built. Just being able to create an original game, then watch their peers play the game is such a high for these kids. To be able to say, I made that, is a real ego boost. Creating games, making rapid progress in a short span of time. Thinking up new games, brainstorming is normally a pain to get students to do, but not when it involves game design. And seeing their ideas take shape. Looking at different styles of teaching, first up is our Space Bubbles Educator materials, which are educator-led. There's a list here of everything that's included in the materials. Space Bubbles is a drag and drop based, project-based scheme of work where students work on one project over the course of 8 one-hour lessons, with 30 minutes being spent on learning code and 30 minutes being spent on making the Space Bubbles game. Over those lessons, students are taught how to program by recreating their own version of the game Space Bubbles using video tutorials. It's aimed at children aged 12 to 14, but can be used for older and younger, and developed by Terry Watt, who is a teacher and formerly a game designer. In a home learning environment, the lessons can be taught using Zoom, and the students can progress using the video tutorials. They are able to export their game, submit their game for evaluation by the teacher, and complete their self-assessment form. Each lesson has its own starter project, so if a student gets stuck, they can move on. The curriculum topics covered include programming, key concepts and principles, sequencing, selection statements, and iteration, modeling the state and behavior of real-world problems and physical systems, such as making hot chocolate, which is covered in the homeworks. And there's a teacher review, self-review, and peer review. There's a lot here, so I'm going to show you around the content to give you an appreciation of the structure. So if you just bear with me. We'll start off by playing the game. So this is the game that that the students make. This is the finished game. And here you are. You power your craft at the bottom here, and you need to avoid the bubbles. And you can get power-ups, and you can fire gamma rays to pop your bubbles. And you need to avoid the rocks. And you can see some of the rocks are splitting in two. And you can see at the top in the middle that there's a countdown counter, and that's because we're heading towards a warp gate. And when we get to the warp gate, we go home. And you can see at the top left, there's a lives counter, and you can see that we're also making progress with the score. Another extra life. So you can see some of these bigger rocks break in two, and some of these bubbles have different characteristics. Some of them chase after you, and some of them have multiple lives. And all of this is covered in making the game. I'm nearly there now, so we're going to be at the warp gate, and then I'll get to go home. So here's the warp gate. Oops. I'm just going to make a dash for it there. So I escaped. So that's the game that the students make. Close that down, and I'll just show you all of the content that we have. So that's the demo game, which comes with it. And here we have the lessons, and there's homeworks here, and there's a student booklet. So this is printed out and provided to each student, and it accompanies the lesson structure that you're going through with the students. And here we have the self-review and peer review and teacher assessments as well. Here we have the teacher guide. Oh, that's the student booklet. I'll close that down. Here's the teacher guide, and the teacher's guide takes you through how to present each lesson. It gives a breakdown of each lesson, what needs to be done at what stage. There are answers, obviously, for the homeworks, and there's timing guides for this as well. I'm just going through the lessons here, just quickly scrolling through, and also how to manage the assessments. I'll just close that down. These are the lessons, so they're provided with there's PowerPoints for each lesson. So there's 8 lessons in all, each one lasting an hour. The tutorials are the video tutorials. So there's 6 videos which enable you to make a core version of the game, step by step. Each version of or each of these tutorials has its own entire project and a version of the game up until that stage. So if students get stuck, they can just move on to download the next project and carry on if they can't get around whatever it is they're looking for, so they don't get stuck. And then once they've completed the main core version of the game, then you can move on to extension tasks, which as I mentioned, it gives some of the more advanced features that you saw within the game, and also the challenge tasks, which are even more advanced. So over the course of an 8-lesson period, then you'll have students at different stages, but all will have hopefully completed the core game. Okay, so that's the materials. Just go back to the presentation. So moving now to video tutorials, and these are the ones that don't require a teacher to lead, so you can just, if you're in a home working situation, you can just get your students to sit down and make these themselves. This is the first of our consumer tutorials where students learn on their own. This game is based on the classic Asteroids game for beginners, with many of the same mechanics as Space Bubbles. It covers both drag and drop and GML, so you can make the game in drag and drop and then remake in GameMaker language. This is an official tutorial made by one of our community educators, Friendly Cosmo. So it's a different teaching style, and it includes an intro to GameMaker as well. The focus of this is to retain engagement through quick wins. So you very quickly create your ship and get it moving within the first few minutes before layering on additional game elements. Following up from that, we have space mods, which again is drag and drop and GML. And this additional content can also support students who need more help with the Space Bubbles extension and challenge tasks. So there's some additional features like power-ups, enemy ships, cameras that follow you around, so you can extend the size of the room that you're in. Parallax, which gives a layered background, 3D effect, and also visual effects such as particles and screen shake as well. There's a really nice comment that we've got on this slide, which came from one of our users who said, going through this series, this is the video where I had enough confidence to try my own things. This is the video where I've learned enough from this series to try to customize the game. And that's really where we want to get students to be, so that they can move on and then start employing their own ideas on how to improve the games or how to make their own games. Next up, we've got Breakthrough, which is a brick breaker game. Again, this is taught in both GameMaker language and drag and drop. You can try making it in drag and drop and then in GML. Around half of the projects being worked on in GameMaker are in drag and drop, so there's no need to go to GameMaker language until you're ready. And drag and drop is a really good way of understanding the fundamental approaches to coding. This is a totally different style of game, but the teaching for this is still at beginner level. Tutorials in the GameMaker software that show you how to use the tools are also included in GameMaker, and they're a good place to go once you've done the first game and Breakthrough, as you'll have a level of familiarity with these tools from the video tutorials. These are written tutorials, and they take you through the features of all of the different tools that we have within GameMaker. Moving on to starting to get into slightly more advanced territory now. This is creating a platformer game, and this is starts off at beginner level with 2 videos, and then it quickly progresses to being intermediate. There's all the assets here to download, and a link through to the videos. Sean Spalding, who is one of our tutorial creators, one of our community tutorial creators, created the platformer tutorial, and it's been designed so that it links through to his own platformer series, and that's a much more in-depth series of 27 videos that enables you to build a complete, very advanced game. And that's available on YouTube. Udemy and Packt both have courseware, high quality tutorial materials, and if you go and have a look on their websites, quite often you'll find that there's some fairly deep discounts available on those. Looking more at project-based learning now for older students or more advanced students. This is where you can set a theme and see how your students interpret it based on a marking scheme. So that can include interpretation of the theme, complexity or the functionality that's used, playability, coding practice, and creativity. Here are some free resources for tools, artwork, audio, etc. that can be used as the basis for game creation. The Global Game Jam resources at the bottom are particularly noteworthy, as they run the world's largest game jam each year, and this takes place over 3 days. This is our own learning hub on our website, which is a central repository for video tutorials, written tutorials, both official and third-party tutorials. And we run a blog which is updated every week, and these can provide inspiration from our team and pro developers alike. So these articles can fit well with Space Bubbles and Space Rocks tutorials, They cover a wide variety of topics, from planning, creating game mechanics, how-tos on different features, like getting your game finished and how to make code neat, and much more. In these ones, we've got screen shake and an easy typewriter tool. You'll never be short of inspiration and guides for how to do things on YouTube. This is a fairly random search I did on space tutorials, GameMaker space tutorials. There's just loads of content here that can inspire students to learn how to do things in their game. And of course, we have our own manual. All of the features are fully documented with pictures to show how to do various things. So if you've got something that you want to do in your game, that's a really good place to go and look up how to do it. Just type it in the search, and it will show you how to approach it using GameMaker. GameMaker's got a lot of built-in functions which enable you to do most things. And there's community support where we have a forum, and you can go and type any questions that you have. It's very beginner friendly, but there's a lot of experts on there that can provide you with information on how to approach whatever it is you want to do. Also, there's quite a lot of teachers on our forum as well, so a good place for support. Just to talk a little bit now about our latest release, GameMaker version 2.3, which went live in August. It was a big update. If you already have GameMaker, it's not a compulsory update. All educators with a free teacher license have access to the beta before it goes stable, which we expect to, well, actually, which happened a few weeks ago. So we've got more about accessing your free license later. The big news in this release is the Sequences game animation tool, which has been 18 months in the making, and which has been described as being like After Effects, an After Effects animation tool for 2D games. It enables the easy creation of cutscenes, the ability to animate sprites, and tie that into logic within the game. It also enables the synchronization of audio, such as talking or playing different audio clips when a character or sprite is walking on different surfaces. We have detailed articles on the changes and video tutorials on the basics of using sequences. And they're listed, there's a link at the bottom here to the sequences tutorials. And we're expecting to see a lot more popping up on YouTube all the time, as our community educators have been very involved in the testing process. Onto licensing. We have 3 types of license available, and these can be purchased through Studica. There's an Educator desktop license, which enables you to export to Windows, Mac, and Linux. All of our licenses can be used on PC or Mac. They can't at the moment be used on Chromebook, but that's something that we're working hard on. The Educator Plus enables exports of games not only to Windows, Mac, and Linux, but also to HTML5, so they can be shared on the internet. And our Achiever licenses enable additional exports to all mobile devices, Android, iOS, and Fire. UWP, which includes the Xbox One Creator Program, and also probably one for more for universities and colleges, but exports to PlayStation 4 license. So you would need to sign up with Sony to get access to that, but you can export games through to PlayStation console. There are 1- and 2-year licensing options available. The seats are concurrent use licenses, so they can be used for multiple classes. GameMaker can be used on PC and Mac, as I mentioned. For home learning, if you need help with home learning in the forthcoming semester, we can provide 4 temporary licenses that last until the 31st of December for each active license you own. And Studica can help with organising this. So we're reviewing the COVID situation regularly to see to what extent schools need help with home learning, and when we make changes, then to the support that we're providing, then we send emails out to users to let them know what we can do to support them. But we've been providing licenses to educators since the very start. Privacy in education is very important. So we get asked about this quite a lot. I think that the core thing to remember here is that there's no student info collected at all. The way that it works is that the teacher acts as a seat manager. They receive one perpetual Educator desktop seat that they can use to investigate and set up GameMaker. The teacher then sets up the anonymous seats, so they create the account credentials, and quite often those seats in a classroom situation where you may have a PC lab, you would create one seat per device, so the seat belongs to the device rather than the student. You have multiple students logging in, different classes. But in a home learning situation, then obviously there are more you're more likely to be allocating seats through to students, but you still wouldn't provide them with or use any of their personal information in setting up those seats. There's more information in our privacy policy, which is linked to at the bottom here, and a specific section on our approach to education. We have been approved for use by educationframework.com, so if you subscribe to them, it's worth having a look on there and seeing, getting an independent view of what they say about us. And as a thank you for attending our webinar and making it to the end, you're eligible to receive a free teacher license. Christy will send you the link, or click the link button when we send out the slides for step-by-step instructions. And finally, any questions?
Hi, Andrew. I do see a question here. As a teacher, what support materials are available to help me get up to speed?
Okay, so as a teacher, I think one of the best places to go is to familiarize yourself with the Educator materials that we went through earlier, and also to go through the Space Rocks tutorials. There's a really nice, easy section in those Space Rocks about that introduces you to GameMaker. So once you've done both of those two things and played the videos and read through all of the content in the Space Bubbles tutorials, then have a look on the Learn page that we've got, so yoyogames.com/learn, and then start taking a look at some of the other tutorials that are available on there. But essentially, really, once you feel comfortable enough to be able to present the slides on Space Bubbles, then really the rest of the learning is very much down to the students, and it's all guided through the video tutorial. So yeah, it's not particularly difficult to pick up.
Okay, and it looks like there's one more. How can students download GameMaker without creating an account?
Okay, if you just bear with me, I'll show you exactly how to do that. Okay, so this is the Yo-Yo Games website, and if you go to GameMaker here and click on Education, then at the top here you can see there's a download for Windows and a download for Mac. So there's no information needs to be provided to do those downloads for your device if you're learning from home. So you download and install the version of GameMaker, and then you just use the login credentials that the teacher has provided you for your seat.
Great. That looks like the end of the questions. I don't see any more here.
Okay, I'll just move on to our last slide. So the next steps, keep an eye out for a follow-up email from Christy, and it will include instructions for requesting your free Educator license, a recording of this webinar, and additional info. And over to you, Christy.
Just wanted to take a moment to thank you, Andrew, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, if you do have any questions or you would like to request a quote, please contact Sudica. I will be sending that email out, so if you do have any questions, you can always just reply to me there and we will get them answered for you. So thank you everyone and have a great day.